Hey now, this is the 4th episode of the Help Find the Others podcast. As always, if you've been here for the other ones and you're listening again, welcome back. And if this is the first time you're hearing this podcast, well then welcome. As usual, I'd like to start with a quote. Tonight I have a quote picked out from the Magic Mushroom Grower's Guide. This was a book written by Terence McKenna and his brother Dennis under pseudonyms. But it has a really interesting quote in it that I'd like to read. And this is written from the perspective of the mushroom itself. I am old, older than thought in your species, which is itself 50 times older than your history. Though I have been on Earth for ages, I am from the stars. My home is no one planet, for many worlds scattered throughout the shining disk of the galaxy have conditions which allow my spores an opportunity for life. The mushroom which you see is the part of my body given to sex thrills and sunbathing. My true body is a fine network of fibers growing through the soil. These networks may cover acres and may have far more connections than the number in a human brain. My mycelial network is nearly immortal. So I picked out that quote because I want to at least start this podcast focused on, well, what really brought me to my YouTube channel, to start my YouTube channel and to start this podcast. And that is the magic mushroom. Tonight we have a guest, and he is a mushroom enthusiast as well. He's actually one of the first people to reach out to me through my YouTube channel, and I'm glad tonight to finally get to talk to him. And his name is Gary. How you doing there, man?
How's everybody doing tonight?
Pretty good, buddy. Glad to have you. And also, my co-host Stan is on. How are you doing, buddy?
Good, man. Good.
And so yeah, and you know, we've talked to about other drugs and everything, but Stan is as much a mushroom enthusiast as I am. So Gary, why don't you just tell us just a little bit, like your history with the mushroom, how old are you when you first encountered it, and what kind of your feelings are on it?
So I am 25 years old. I just turned 25 last month in September. I've actually only had experience with mushrooms probably in the last year and a half. And I have just formed a sort of symbiotic relationship with them. And they have helped my life in numerous ways. And I like to contribute into helping other people's lives as well with it. I feel like it's a medicine that a lot of people need and they should have in their lives, and we're just kind of neglected and not giving it. You know what I mean? It's a sacred thing that we should be giving.
Yeah.
It's been with us.
Yeah. What was your introduction to it? Like, what influenced you and made you, seek it out?
Honestly, I couldn't even tell you. It almost like it seeked me out. It was like I just kind of got curious, honestly, one day on what it was. It was a lot from YouTube, honestly, just hearing like Terence McKenna and just anything online and just listening to all. It's mainly an interest in like the 1960s and what that whole era was about. And when you really dive into that and you dive into like, the psychedelics and what psychedelics were, and then I was like, okay, what is this? And then I got into it, and I'm into the psychedelic experience now.
Yeah,
I guess you could say.
Yeah. So had you done other psychedelics before mushrooms, or were they your first?
If you count cannabis as a psychedelic, which I do, I think it is a...
yeah, it can be. Yeah, for sure.
It definitely can be at high doses.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's for me personally, like, my first experience with mushrooms was like I was very experienced with acid, and then they just kind of like came around, and I was like, yeah, I'll try those or whatever. And like I didn't do enough, so I didn't think they were that great. And then it was the same thing, man. Terrence McKenna. Like I think I heard of Terrence McKenna from Bill Hicks. And do you know that one bit where he talks about the war on drugs and stuff like that, and he tells everyone like there's a heroic dose of mushrooms under your seat, or
yeah.
That bit. And I was like, what the hell is he talking about? And then just started like researching Terrence McKenna and went down that route. And it's funny that to hear that, so many people I talk to, Terrence McKenna is the one that gets them into it,
right.
or, gets them interested in it. And Terrence even said himself that it's almost like he feels like the mushroom deputized him, that it part of its spread throughout, modern humanity, like chose him to be that. And that's pretty,
like he didn't choose the life, right?
Yeah.
Like they kind of chose him.
Yeah. And when he was saying that in the 80s, that probably sounded pretty egotistical. But fast forward to now, and it seems to be pretty fucking accurate,
Right. Yeah. It's interesting that you start the podcast off with the quote where he kind of describes him as like an alien species, because I almost believe that we're almost like messengers from an alien species.
Yeah. No, I mean, I imagine, have you read Food of the Gods?
Mm-hmm.
His book? Yeah. I mean, that shaped my like view on like, where mushrooms came from and what they mean to humanity and to the human brain. But
he's a pretty far out guy.
For sure. Like it's a crazy idea, but my experience has kind of like only reaffirmed that, like I definitely feel that. I don't know if it's because I went into the mushroom culture with that kind of stoned ape theory and the idea that they came from outer space with that in mind. And I've been looking to like reaffirm that position, but it really does make a lot of sense. Especially like I have a degree in biology, and like I've, a lot of my work experience and knowledge and stuff is all like, ecosystems and plant life and stuff like that. And I mean, it makes sense biologically too, that mushroom spores could come from, other planets and be like just able to like go through space and then land on a planet and grow if it has the conditions.
Yeah, Terrence McKenna actually said something about mushroom spores, like how they can protect themselves. I don't remember like exactly how he put it, because he probably put it in some like crazy way, like in his own Terrence McKenna way. But it was like mushroom spores are like really ultra protective of themselves. Like they're able to be like transferred over like crazy distances and stuff. And, like, yeah, you know what I mean? Like almost as like they are this chemical messenger from far away.
Well, it's it's one of the organisms that have you ever heard of like these scientists that study like the vents at the bottom of the super hot vents at the bottom of the ocean, or like really dark, cold caves and stuff like that? And they study what are called extremophiles, which are like organisms that can live in just like crazy, environments that we don't think life can live. And like they find fungus everywhere, literally everywhere. Mm-hmm. And it's because that they are able to like put themselves into, well, their spores are basically rocks that once they hit the right conditions, they can hatch or whatever, become mycelium. And so spores could just fly through space until they hit a planet.
It's insane. It really is an insane thing to say. Yeah. If you said that to anybody else, they would be like, what are you talking about? Yeah. This is just a mushroom.
Yeah.
It really is.
Yeah. And have you ever read or listened to Paul Stamets at all?
Yes. When he was on Joe Rogan.
Yeah.
He said some pretty crazy things about mushrooms. And I was like, whoa.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I like what he said in there, that, he believes that mushrooms, and not just psychedelic mushrooms, but, the fungus, all of the fungus on this planet, that they were here first, and that everything they've created or everything that there is was created by them to like kind of increase their life and everything like that.
Yeah, like they create their own future in a way.
Yeah.
So essentially they created us.
Right.
So essentially they're our gods.
Yeah.
So essentially when we eat them, that's why we feel godlike, because we're eating essentially the gods, the flesh of God.
Flesh of the gods, right? Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah. And I like too in Food of the Gods where he, puts out all the evidence that like the start of religion was all based around mushroom usage, and
I believe it.
The earliest, idols and paintings and stuff like that, are all mushrooms. Sometimes they think they're penises and stuff like that, but a lot of times they could be mushrooms. And it's just pretty interesting to think back. Like modern society wants us to believe like, that Judeo-Christian beliefs and stuff, that's just the start of spirituality. Like that's, nobody got God right until there was the Bible and the Torah, and it's like, there was a lot of human society before any of that stuff was thought up. And like, why do we discredit that just because of this relatively new idea of what God is? We used to worship the plants and the animals that sustained us and made us what we are,
Mm-hmm. But now what do we worship? What are our gods today?
Our phones.
So true.
Yeah. And it's like, I talk about other drugs and everything. And like, I don't know, you said you haven't had any experience with LSD, but that's been my.
I have had a little bit. I've done like probably just like microdoses, but I've never gone all the way.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. And that's, I started with like heavy doses of LSD. And then now in my adult life, I'm doing microdosing and doing a regimen with that. And it's such a different thing. It's definitely beneficial, but it doesn't, it just feels like I'm taking a drug that makes me perform better. It's
essentially,
yeah, like it's a performance enhancing drug
for the mind. Yeah.
Yeah. To where mushrooms is just, and it's one reason, I argue with people about dosage so much is because the experience is what happens. Like, and it's almost like the mushroom a lot of times kind of decides what experience you're going to have, and how strong it's going to be. It's not so much the dose, because I've had so many times where I thought I was going to take a gram or a microdose, and I'm talking the same batches too, where I know the potency, and I either can't have an experience. Like I'll be like, I'm not even like buzzed or anything when I've taken like 2 grams, and I'm like, what the hell? And then other times where I'll take a gram and I'm like, I can't leave the house, like I'm stuck in my bed.
Hey, I do it for work. Like hopefully no one at work's listening, but I do it like, cause I create things. I'm like a graphic designer and stuff. So I do it like, probably, I don't know, sometimes 0.2 to a 0.5. Sometimes I do like 0.5. I'm sitting at my desk, like just contemplating infinity, bro. Like, I'm like, dude, I took way too much, bro.
Yeah.
But like, it helps me be creative. It helps it's almost like superpowers, dude. Like, it's crazy. What do you guys microdose for?
What do you, with LSD?
Or yeah, anything, LSD or mushrooms?
I don't know. Cause at first I wanted it for productivity. But I've really noticed it actually, the benefit being like confidence and anti-anxiety, anti-depression.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's definitely that.
Yeah. And, I wanted it, like everyone says it's for creativity. And I get that more on the off days, because I do like the 1 day on, 2 days off.
Yeah, I know what you're saying.
And on the off days, I'm very creative. But when I'm on a microdose of psilocybin or LSD, it's not. I don't feel creative. I don't feel like creating. I don't know. Have you noticed anything different with that, Stan?
For me, it's a bit different because I'll do like coding or something similar, like graphic design, like you were saying, Gary. So it is a little bit different, but for me, what it does, it just helps me tap into the flow state. I took one the other day, and I just went to the office space that I work out of, and it took me 3 hours on a project before I even looked up and noticed the time. So it's more of a stimulant for me. And
yeah, you just kind of get in the zone.
Yeah, exactly. It's a beautiful thing. And to add to the list of the reasons, Ruben, why you said, it's kind of evolved your reasoning behind taking it. Another reason for me is just I feel very comfortable in like the psychedelic headspace. So it started off as a scary headspace to have, but then once you take it and it becomes the way you think and then what you believe in, and it can transform so much of your life. I feel like it's almost it just feels like home when you're in that space. So having the 1 day on, 2 days off, it's just a nice balance to keep you in there and just keep you moving forward, progressing.
Yeah. I think, and I've been trying to like really nail down the differences between my times when I was doing the microdose regimen with mushrooms compared to now with the LSD. I think the mushrooms, I wouldn't call it creativeness, but I had more like, ideas. Like I would, just have, even if they're stupid ideas of science and whatever, like my mind would wander more.
Yeah.
And I do find the LSD is more, like you said, focused like that. But I also feel that the LSD has made it more like anti-anxiety. Like I'm like chiller, and like can handle like just day-to-day bullshit that happens. I can just handle it a little better on the LSD microdose regimen, to where actually I felt like the mushrooms made me a little bit more on edge almost.
Okay. Yeah, for me, when I experimented with like microdosing mushrooms, it was definitely an energy, but it wasn't. It, like you said, it wasn't with LSD how focused it is. It wasn't like that. It was just like an energy of living, and it was just all over the place. But with LSD, I mean, everybody in Silicon Valley taking it. It just helps you, get in the flow. So it's a different beast by far.
Yeah. So, Gary, well, you were saying you're microdosing. Like, what's your like high dose experience? Like, have you, what's the highest dose you've ever taken, and how do you, handle all of that?
So the highest dose I've probably ever taken is I actually didn't even measure. So going back to Terrence McKenna, he says, if you didn't feel it the first time, you take it until you feel it or something like that. So I had a bag of mushrooms, and I was like, you know what? I just kept eating it like a bag of chips. I was like, I'm going to take it until I feel it. I probably had about 6 grams in there. I don't know, maybe 5 to 6.
Yeah.
And so I was like, I'm just going to keep eating it. I was like, all right, it didn't kick in yet. And then I kept eating it, and then felt extremely nauseous, like extremely. I was like, oh no, and I was tripping like low key. And then I was like, oh no. And then all of a sudden it just vanished. Like it just absolutely vanished. And I just felt like this I fell into this abyss of love and harmony and everything. And I was just like in this other world that would just, it was insane. But it was probably about 4 grams, I would say.
Wow.
I've never probably got to a heroic dose of 5.
Yeah.
Only because of the nausea. That's the only thing that bugs me a little bit about mushrooms.
Yeah.
Like, have you guys ever thrown up from mushrooms?
Oh yeah, yeah.
I'm fortunate I have not, but I'm not a puker when it comes to anything, including like alcohol or anything.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I definitely have, I think there's a certain part of my nausea that comes from anxiety, because I've done so much stuff to try and curb nausea. I have found that if you lemon tech and then dump all of the juice and the stuff into a tea and make tea, not too hot, but just, like I have a Keurig coffee thing, and, I just put it in there without a pod, like however hot that comes out, and make the tea. But then I strain out all the mushroom material.
Okay.
And then I put that in a tea bag and I squeeze it to get as much like juice out. And then I just throw that out, and enough of it comes out into the liquid, that, if there's any psilocybin left, or psilocin and psilocybin left in the stuff I throw out, it's pretty minuscule, because, I couldn't tell a difference. But not having that mushroom material in your stomach, because it is made of a well, I think it's actually a carbohydrate, but a material that it's hard for your stomach to digest, and some people digest it more, some don't. It can upset your stomach and make for that nausea. So I've found that doing that, I have a lot less. But there's also something called serotonergic nausea, which is when your serotonin receptors are starting to get like flooded. It can cause like kind of like a motion sickness kind of reaction almost. And
that makes sense.
Yeah. And so that's what happens is the psilocin or psilocybin or whichever one, I forgot which one your body digested into, but when that starts hitting your serotonin receptors, you get that reaction there. If you take lemon oil like extract, I forgot what's in it, but there's something in it that is a antagonist to one of those chemical reactions in your brain, and it can actually stop that. So I take that. I take like 3 or 4 drops, like maybe a good hour before I drink the tea.
That makes sense. Yeah, I have heard that. I drink. I usually drink it with lemon ginger tea.
Yeah,
it does the trick.
Yeah. Oh yeah. When I'm like feeling nauseous or my stomach's upset, I'll get those ginger candies. The candied ginger.
They're like candy chews, right?
Right. Yeah.
I just picked those up the other night. Oh, I love them.
Yeah. Yeah. And I find with all that stuff, it helps the nausea, but I do think a big part of it is anxiety. And because I get really, the come up for me is pretty bad.
Yeah, it's intense because you feel it coming on. You're like, here we go. It's like a roller coaster ride.
Yeah. And I've had enough like really intense, semi bad trips that it's like, I always, it clicks that part in your brain, like, oh, this is going to be a bad trip again, and it gives me like anxiety. And it's funny because I'll trip with people that like have never had a bad time, and they're just like, "Oh, this is awesome," and I'm like hiding in the corner, and like you're like, "What the fuck? I thought you're like Mr. Mushroom," and I'm like, "I know, but they don't like me for the first hour."
But after the first hour, like usually, if you get through that like a certain section of the bad trip, it usually turns into a good one.
Yeah,
it does. Yeah, sure. I mean, it's definitely that's the hardest part though, is making it through. I mean. That's definitely part that scared me before I took it for the first time, was just the anticipation and the expectation, which, as we probably all know, expecting something is probably not the best thing when you're taking mushrooms. So so there's no way you can expect what the mushroom experience is. There's no way. Exactly.
People are like, oh, you see like elephants and colors. Like, you like live 1,000 lifetimes and feel it's not like that.
For me, at least, it makes you feel what you need, it shows you what you need. It's what you need in that moment in time, the now.
It's almost like a teacher.
Yeah, it's nice. And I know Ruben has more experience with the different like genus species of magical mushrooms, but I have only tried the golden teacher. What about you guys? Gary, do you have any more experience, or did you even know what species yours was?
It's mainly golden teacher. That's usually the only thing that I can get. I have tried this like mini one, but I don't know what it is. I think it was from like somewhere in Central America.
Okay.
Yeah. I've tried a bunch. I don't grow anymore. I've definitely, 10 years ago or so when I like rediscovered mushrooms. And I grew them probably 20 years ago or, almost 20 years ago in my dorm room. I don't remember where I bought the spores, how I even found out. I think like there was some like total anarchist website that had like instructions for it. It was like pre-shroomery, pre-Erowid. And
they're so easy to get.
I know. And my buddy and I mean, I'm talking, this is back when you could order weed from Amsterdam over the internet. Like, this is pre, September 11th.
Yeah.
It was a different world.
Yeah. And my friend and I grew them, and you had to use the pressure cooker, and we didn't know how, so we went to his mom's house and told her it was like for a class, and she like did up the jars and everything, and we did the whole thing at her house with her like, oh, this is cool, you know, or whatever. And it was just because we didn't know how to use a pressure canner. And then we grew them in our dorm room, and I don't remember the process because it wasn't interesting to me at the time, which blows my mind because I'm really interested by the process now. You know, and yeah, it was weird. We even I told the story of one of my videos, but we got busted by the cops, or someone called the cops on us for smoking weed in our dorm room, and the cops came in to search, and we were like out in the hallway, and we saw them like all over by my buddy's closet, like looking in there, and they were like, "Hey, come here," you know, and they lifted up the thing. They're like, "What's this?" And there's all these mushrooms growing in this bin, and I was like, and my friend was like, that's for a biology experiment for one of my classes. And the cop was like, oh, I'm sorry. Do I just put it back here? Is that right? Was it this way? And we're like, yeah, well, no, turn it around.
That's
and he was
hilarious.
like, okay, yeah. And then he was like, and we found these seeds and stems over there. You know, we could get you kicked off campus for this. It's like, I'm sorry, you know, and yeah. So,
because people don't know how mushrooms are grown. They don't know the process of it.
And especially in 2001 or whatever, you know,
yeah, exactly.
I mean, yeah. And
there was no YouTube.
A campus cop in 2001 didn't know what the fuck that was, you know?
Mm-hmm.
If it would have been dried in a bag and looked like it was to be sold, you know, he would have been like, I know what this is, but yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You know what I think the crazy thing to me is you can order mushroom spores legally anywhere. Like that you can order them I think there's like 3 or 4 states that you can't order them in, or like it's a small amount, but you can order them online for anywhere in the United States.
Yeah, I know. And I don't know why that is. You know, like I think there's just like a certain bit of posturing that needs to be made by like drug policy, to where they're like, you know, no, you can't do this. This is a drug like everything else, but they kind of know that it's not that bad, and that it's even potentially good. You know, and especially now with the research being done of its therapeutic potential, like I don't see that changing. They're not going to make it harder to grow mushrooms. If you know, I think we're looking at a situation pretty soon where I think cannabis and mushrooms are really going to be legal to grow your own everywhere. You know, I mean, maybe they might leave it up to states to make their own decisions, but I think federally, you know, mushrooms are pretty close to being taken off, or at least reclassified or scheduled or whatever with the you know, the Schedule 1, Schedule 2, Schedule 3 stuff.
Yeah,
I could really see psilocybin being, you know, they can't deny that it doesn't have a medical benefit, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, the other day, Johns Hopkins University okayed the FDA. They said it was good to go for some kind of therapeutic properties.
As a breakthrough therapy, yeah.
Yeah, like it had to be in like very, very depressed clients, I guess, or like
treatment-resistant depression.
Yeah, that's what it was.
And PTSD. Yeah, and you know that's
something.
Oh, I mean, that's huge. You know, basically what that means is that like, if you can find someone that's willing, you know, it's still a Schedule 1 drug. So you're still going to have the problem of like, you know, are you going to find a therapist that gives it to you, or are you going to have to bring it with you to the therapist? Like, you know, it still brings up the access issue. But that, a therapist that's willing to, guide someone on a psilocybin journey, it's not illegal for them to do that. And
it's a shaman.
Yeah, pretty much. And it's interesting to put it that way, because I think you know, that kind of model of therapy, but just including psychedelics, is kind of a neo shamanism. You know, it's taking it out of the grass huts and from, you know, being around a fire and dancing, and giving it the same kind of clinical nature of standard psychotherapy, but then combining the spiritual, you know, mystical experience along with it. I think that's a huge step forward for humanity, honestly, you know?
Definitely. Yeah. I mean, and in that article, you sent me that article about some company trying to kind of like corner off the marketplace beforehand, but before it becomes recreational legal. But part of it was, you know, how do you find it? How do you find a therapist? You know, is it somebody you pretty much want to have somebody that took it, because how are you supposed to trust somebody that hasn't and they say, hey, it's going to be all right? You're like, well, you haven't been where I am right now, you know? So it's going to be a challenge, but it's just opens such an awesome opportunity up. And I'm like envious of everybody that's getting their psychology masters right now.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it really, it's good. It's a new renaissance, man. I mean, like, and I talk about it a lot. Like Timothy Leary and his whole and the Merry Pranksters and Ken Kesey and that whole like 60s scene, it scared the status quo so much that it set the whole psychedelic like therapy revolution back like 30 years, you know, and we're really just starting now to get back to where it was about to be then.
Yes, I think this is the true psychedelic renaissance that we're living in right now.
No, I agree. And it's further carried on by YouTube channels and podcasts and all of this stuff that we have available.
Like what we're doing right now.
Exactly.
Yeah. And kind of to play devil's advocate, in that article, it mentioned, you know, some of the red flags that came up with all these new laws and new regulations coming up that are allowing psilocybin to be used. And one of the big ones that stuck with me was the article put out the idea of, you know, this is such a major thing in the eyes of people that are foreign to, you know, drugs or psychedelics. And it's kind of like, at least I feel it's like a one-time shot. And it's, if you mess it up, it might be messed up again, just how they messed it up with the, you know, brute force tactics of putting acid everywhere in the 70s. I just don't want to have it be messed up this time around because we have such a great chance, you know?
Well, and that's why I think the focusing on the therapy side of it is important, because, you know, I honestly fully believe that it's just a mushroom that you can go in the woods and find for yourself in most places. And you should be able to take it if you want. I don't believe that, you know, our minds should be under the jurisdiction of law enforcement. However, like you said, as far as it comes down, you know, to not make it retract and be, you know, pushed into the darkness again, I think to really wave the flag of this is therapy, it will work the same way that loosening up cannabis laws was started by waving the flag of this is medicine, even though it's much more. You know, it's obviously medicine, but you should be allowed to just get high too. Like why, you know, like that,
hey, did you know during alcohol prohibition they had medical alcohol?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
It's the same thing.
Rich people didn't stop drinking, you know, like it was all posturing. And yeah, you could just get prescribed whiskey and like, there you go, you know, like, yeah. But, and cannabis prohibition is taken much longer, but it's followed the exact same, you know, path as alcohol prohibition did. But, yeah, I mean, with mushrooms going forward, I think you're going to see the exact same thing that's happened with cannabis, in that like you're going to have like 2 states that make it just legal, you know, and like they won't have a system set up to buy it, but they're like, if you find it in the woods and you eat it, who cares, you know? And like, and
I think it'll start off to be decriminalized first.
Right. It'll be decriminalized, and then it'll be like a, you know, you can home grow or whatever, like kind of thing. And, you know, and then there'll be therapy, and then there'll just be recreational, you know? And I think that's what's going to happen. And I've also talked about, I got a little off topic there because we were talking about different strains, but I also like to talk about my idea that, growing mushrooms is going to be in the future, just like how growing cannabis is now, with people just kind of really getting into the genetic selection of it and creating these, you know, not just tailoring the the physical like properties of the fruit or whatever.
But just perfecting the craft.
Well, I'll even take it a step further. I can't really put it out of the realm of possibility that humans are going to be able to tailor the experience. You know what I'm saying?
Yes, I know what you're saying.
Like because if it's not just psilocybin that affects us, like it's all the other alkaloids and whatever, and tryptamines and phenylethyns and whatever, all the stuff that's in the chemistry of the mushroom. I think we're going to be able to really realize what all that does in our body and what the synergies are between them and what the, components are, much like we've done with cannabis. At first they were like, it's THC. Now there's 50 different things in it that they're researching.
So you think there's something else other than psilocybin and psilocin that affects us in the mushrooms?
Well, I mean, I know there is. There's biocysteine is another one that's in there. And Paul Stamets' book, Mycelium Running, it talks about it. I don't want to, I'll mangle all the chemical names, but yeah, no, there's definitely some of those, but do they understand what they do psychologically?
Yeah, that's the thing.
No, you know, and there's very few chemists that really research that. That's what Sasha Shulgin, do you know him? Alexander Shulgin.
You've mentioned him before.
Yeah. So he, he's called the guy that invented MDMA, but he isn't. He rediscovered it. It was actually discovered by Nazis. They were like looking. All psychedelic drugs were like researched for something for pregnancy, which I think is bizarre. But the Nazis were looking for a pregnancy or like a cough medicine that pregnant women could use, and they created MDMA. And
that's interesting.
They never did they never researched with doses that realized what it was, and they just kind of like let the patent go, And so Shulgin started his research with mescaline and making mescaline analogs, but eventually found MDMA and realized how amazing it was and put it out into the world. And then it became, a recreational drug. But anyway, he that's what he did for his whole career, was just sit in a lab and take psychedelic molecules and just move them around like a tinker toy and create all these drugs. I mean, he's got 2 books. I've got them both, T-Cal and P-Cal, and they're just page after page of drugs he created and tested on himself and then his wife and then a test group of about 8 people. And they would test the different dosages and give their reports on what it did. And so, if someone, and he focused on mescaline because his first psychedelic experience was mescaline, and it was so beautiful that he felt inspired to do that. And so there's got to be someone that is, a brilliant chemist like that, that is so enamored with psilocybin that they are going to do the same thing and move molecules around. And who knows, if someone has a deeper understanding of brain chemistry and psychology, you could tailor a psychedelic experience to, have more of this quality, less of this quality, or whatever, I really think in the future we'll get to that point.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
Yeah. I remember you first bringing that up in another podcast, and that's just the idea that blew my mind because I never thought about it. I mean, I feel like that's something that'll start off with like gimmicky, like, oh, these ones there's no nausea, and then it'll evolve into something like you're saying, where it's just a whole different experience, or it'll be amazing to see, if they start modifying them, for certain mental illnesses that somebody's going in to, get treated for, or, that'll be amazing.
Yeah. Well, and that's what I was going to say about strains too, is, like I haven't grown in a while. Luckily I was able to get other people into it. And so like, it's just kind of, and they do it better than I do. And then, so, I just have a rock solid hook up whenever I want, because I kind of, spread that love and interest. I just got a little too paranoid to do it anymore. And especially now with being, putting my face and voice out there, it probably wouldn't be a good idea. But because like you said, that you can get the spores, every time I tried them, like, I'll try this kind. Yeah. And I definitely noticed a difference, and not just tripping like, oh, these are way different. Like, I mean, a consistent every time I did those strains. So what I've seen of golden teachers and experienced of them is they are maybe not as potent as some might be, but I doubt there's many as powerful, if that makes sense.
Okay.
Like it's always a very deep, meaningful experience every time I've done Golden Teachers.
Mm-hmm.
You know, which, I mean, maybe that's where the name comes from. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
But, you know, I've tried these ones called Malabar, and every time I've taken those, it's been like just a party, you know, like fun, strong, intense. Yes, all of those things, but not very meaningful. And even with going into the you know, having the intention of being meaningful.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I had another one called Treasure Coast, and that one, I don't know what it was, and maybe I was just overdoing it or whatever. But I got the feeling, I was like, this strain has a spirit, and they all do, and this spirit does not like me, and it is torturing me every time I take them. And I was afraid, even not under the influence, if I was like looking at the bag of these Treasure Coast, I got a uneasy feeling that they didn't like me. And this feeling got so intense that I just gave them all away, which I do anyway. And I'll talk about that in a minute. But yeah, these Treasure Coast, I don't know what it was, man. I mean, it fucked me up in the head.
I felt that before from certain strains I've gotten.
Yeah.
I don't know what exactly they were, but like it was just an uneasy feeling after I've done them.
Yeah. Now I feel they have an intelligence and a spirit, and they don't want some people to take them. I don't know what it is. It's weird.
They almost have a mind of their own.
Yeah. But now, have you only had experience with cubensis? Because have you ever done like the stones, the Mexicane, or anything else?
No, like Amanita muscaria or anything like that.
Well, yeah, we could talk about that. That's a different one. That doesn't even have psilocybin in it.
Yeah, I've never done it though.
Oh,
I've
okay.
only actually done just like, you know, psilocybin.
Yeah.
Cubensis.
Yeah. Yeah. Muscaria has muscimol in it, and it's actually more related to Ambien than
Wow.
than psilocybin.
That's
And
interesting.
Yeah, it's what do they call it? A hypnotic. Actually, it's not a tryptamine, but it sucks. They suck. I mean, if someone likes them, that's great, you know, or whatever. And I like.
It's not like psilocybin.
Oh no. It's more like being drunk, kind of. I mean, it can give you good dreams and stuff like that. I mean, it's an interesting thing to research, and some people might like it, but I've given it a pretty good try before, and it's not that great. But I have the you know, the psilocybin genus has a lot of different species, and the Mexicane species makes stones or sclerotia, or what they're called.
Oh,
and it's the they're like tubers almost underground, and so I've grown these before, and they're actually the easiest thing to grow if someone wanted to grow, because you just take the spores, you put it in the sterilized grain jars, which if no one, you know, watch a YouTube video about all of that, you know, that's basically all mushrooms start that way, even like edible, you know, gourmet mushrooms. You start the spores on grain, and then you get mycelium. So, but then with other mushrooms, to get the actual fruiting body, you have to take that colonized mass that they'll call like a cake or
yeah, it's cakes.
Yeah. And then put it either in a bulk substrate or just fruit it off of that. But with the stones, you don't have to do anything. You just leave it in the jar until you see enough in there that you want. And then you just take it out and eat them. I've dried them out and powdered them. That works too. You really lose a lot of weight to that process. But eating the stones is kind of a different experience. My experience with it, it's been more MDMA like and just more kind of like positive, but less like profound. They're interesting. I think everyone should give them a try. It's weird. Like mushrooms used to be legal in Amsterdam, and they made them illegal, and then they made it legal to, or like they still allow you to eat sclerotia or stones. So they have, when you go to smart shops there, you can buy these stones. And they're interesting. You have to eat a whole bunch of them. And they taste fucking terrible.
Is it almost like a different experience when you eat them though?
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like it is. It's just more body, you know, like, I mean, really MDMA, like, like one night that I did them, I just like was like listening to music, and I like just picked up a bass guitar and then was like playing bass along with like music in my headphones, and was doing that for like 2 hours. You know, I mean, it was like there was no lessons learned or anything. I was just like, oh, this is fucking awesome. Yeah.
In the time of your life.
Right. Yeah. You know? But yeah, I mean, with most, you know, mushroom, you know, like eating the cubensis, you know, I usually like want to lay down. Like usually not in party mode unless I'm with people that are trying to party. But like when I'm by myself, like it's always, you know, kind of like, all right, it's lesson time,
exactly,
you know, or whatever.
Yeah, I'm just gonna sit down and ride it out. Honestly, anything over 3 grams, I don't want to party.
Yeah,
definitely.
Oh, yeah.
Just want to sit down and learn.
Yeah. Well, and you know, I think that's the best way to maximize how much you take. You know, it's like I've taken probably 7 or 8 grams before at a music festival, and not had as much of an overwhelming experience as sometimes I've had 2 grams and sat on my couch. You know.
Yeah.
Like that's the whole thing that Terrence always preached of, like set and setting.
Yeah, I believe it's all in it's less in the how much you do and what you do, and it's more in the experience that you do it in.
Yeah.
In the people that you're with.
Yeah. So what do you think about like these people that, well, one guy I follow is Kalindi IE. Do you know, have you seen him on YouTube?
I've never heard of him.
Okay. So he's like this martial arts like black dude from Detroit, and like he's been big in like the martial arts community, but then he like came out that, you know, he's used psychedelic drugs his whole martial arts career, and that's big in like martial, you know, like deeply spiritual martial artists and stuff like that all have done, and you know, from the start have done psychedelic mushrooms, and then he's that's like his like second wind in life now is being this like psychedelic guru. But he, you know, he preaches doing ounces plus, you know, like 31 grams is his video on YouTube.
In one setting?
Oh yeah.
This guy eats 31 ounces in one setting?
No. 31 grams. Like he
Oh, I was like
ounces plus,
yeah,
you know, like like he never does less than an ounce, and he says that's
still a lot. 31 grams.
Oh yeah, that's
insane
lot.
Too.
Yeah, and not fresh. We're talking dry, and
wow.
And he's not alone, okay? Because I've gotten to the point where I'm like, I invite the people on the podcast, and other than that, I stop arguing with them. But people comment on my 5 gram, my first video. There's 2 to 3 people a week that leave a comment saying anything under 10 grams is child's play, or if you haven't done 15 grams, you've never done much, stuff like that. And so
what's the most you've ever done
that I've measured out on a scale? 5 grams. But
that's a lot.
Yeah, and it is, and that's you know what I try to get across to people. I've done more, you know, knowing what it looks like 5 grams. I remember weighing it out and going like, fuck, I've eaten more than this plenty of times, you know? But the set and setting and intention add more to the experience than the dosage, I feel like.
That's the most important thing.
Yeah. You know, because
really
I mean, even doing 5 grams, when I do 5 grams and I have music on, this situation changes drastically when I'm like, all right, I'm gonna try without music. Like once your brain doesn't have a distraction of other people or music and lights, it's a different world, you know. And so Kalindi and other people I've seen that do 30 plus grams, they say that at that level, set and setting doesn't matter because you can't do anything other than, lay down and close your eyes.
You have to be in a different universe at that point.
Right. And so like, I get it. And maybe someday I'll have enough balls to do that. But it doesn't call to me. I don't see it happening because it just scares me. Yeah. I'm not even like, I'm jealous that those guys aren't afraid to do that.
How does he not get sick?
Well, he says he does, but then he counts how many mushrooms he throws up and he eats them again.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Wow. That just adds another layer. Like, he eats his own throw up of mushrooms?
No, he eats more.
Oh, I got you. Yeah. Okay. I was like, what?
He said he counts in the toilet. Like, he's like, oh, I lost 8 mushrooms and he eats 8 more.
Wow. That's okay.
Yeah.
That's intense.
No, I mean, he tells stories of fighting, like kung fu fighting, like praying mantis people, or like someone asked, like, what's the come up, like a 31 mushrooms? He's like, come up. He's like, the roof gets ripped off your house and a praying mantis spaceship pulls up and they get out and they say, get in, and then you fly around the universe forever.
I can't even imagine. You must be high for a week.
No, he says it's the same amount of time.
Wow, that's insane.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't get that calling either, to be honest.
No. And I'm fine with if people do. It's part of what I want to see happen. I want to see research done, and that's research. Taking 31 grams of mushrooms and making a video about it, that's fucking research. You don't need to, be in a clinical setting. But what I don't like is that the people from that culture, from the high dose culture, and not just mushrooms, of any psychedelic, they shit on everybody else that takes whatever dosage they're comfortable with. And they're like, oh yeah, what you just did is nothing because it's not what I did. And I hate that mentality,
it shouldn't be a competition.
It's not. Everybody's different, and it's not on us to like judge anyone else's experience. And so it sucks because I often get caught up, people like, that my friends and stuff to be like, oh, I'm always arguing politics on Facebook or whatever. And I don't do that, but I am always arguing about psychedelic dosage levels on Reddit or Facebook and stuff like that. And I'm like, I need to stop doing that because I get drawn into like they're seeking out negative attention. If they're a high doser, that's great. But why the fuck would you go and just start bashing people on the internet then? Like, wouldn't you be above that? If it was truly that important.
Right.
Yeah. And so like, I just get caught up in like they're seeking negative attention.
Hey, maybe they didn't actually do it.
Yeah, we talked about that, and Ruben was just like, why would you even lie about it though? Why would you waste your time? But people do it, man. Yeah.
So another thing that I've noticed, and I don't know if you guys have heard any stories about this, but whenever I've grown mushrooms, another area that makes me think that the mushrooms have intelligence is every time I grow, no matter how meticulous I've been about the process, my harvest is always significantly different. Like, as far as like, they've been like, you're only supposed to get 3 grams this go around, and I'll be like, whatever. But then I'll take those 3 grams and have an amazing trip, a life, a watershed moment type trip.
I've heard it's all in the energy and how you grow them.
I know it really is, man. I've really come to realize that. And then there's been some where like, a while back, I had the idea that, I could sell these, man. Yeah, that's what I want to do. And they wouldn't fucking grow for me.
Wow.
Really? I kept getting contaminations. I kept getting just dud spores and having to order another spore thing and do all this and that and everything. And then, I just was kind of like, I guess I'm not going to be a mushroom dealer, whatever. And then I was like, I'm going to try one more grow. And they fucking grew. As soon as I came to that realization that I'm not supposed to sell them, then they fucking grew for me. So then
they're giving you a lesson even before you took them.
Right. I know. and then so then that's when I came to the realization that like, okay, well, anyway, I got kids now. I fucking like I shouldn't be a drug dealer of any kind, so that's fine. But then I've always been like, if I have mushrooms and someone's looking for mushrooms, a friend or whatever, I it is free of charge. This is part of the universe, and
Yeah, exactly.
and I've always felt that my spirit is clean and I'm in kept in high regards by the mushroom community because of that. So, but it's weird. I've definitely noticed that. Yeah. And because of my intention to sell them, I've had much more difficulty growing them than anybody else that I know who's grown them or that has talked or that I have gotten them from, like everyone's like, why does that keep happening to you, or whatever. So I really think like your intention with growing them has to be just as pure as your intention of taking them.
And you just have to love them, man.
Yeah.
You have to love them when you grow them.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and I've heard people get like that with their cannabis plants too. Well, honestly, I had the same thing happen. I haven't tried to grow weed too much just because of how unstealth it is. And that's the crazy thing about mushrooms is not only is it legal to get all the stuff to do it, it's just illegal to combine them.
Yep, exactly.
But it's relatively, I mean, you could do it in anyone who has a closet can grow mushrooms.
It's pretty easy.
Yeah.
The hardest thing about it is the sterilization. That's probably the toughest thing. Like if you didn't have to sterilize everything, it would be so easy to grow mushrooms.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it takes less care than growing weed.
Mm-hmm.
It's,
you kind of just plant them in and let them do their thing and see where it goes.
Yeah. Yeah. Cause one of the only times I've ever tried to grow weed, A, I didn't know what I was doing, but B, it was like, we bought the cheapest stuff we could. Like we were like, I'm not spending all this money, blah, blah, blah. We like barely gave it any light because we were trying to hide it and all of this stuff. And like, we just treated this plant shitty and then we got shitty weed, and then like, I know people who grow weed that buy, the top notch, most expensive nutrients they can and all this stuff. And they play music for it and everything. And they get killer weed from it. Like, it's like the more love you put into it, the more love you get out. And mushrooms are the same way, I feel like.
Yeah, there was some kind of study about I don't remember the specifics, but it was the same plant and they grew it, and one they played some kind of nice orchestra music or whatever, like some kind of symphony, and then they played heavy metal for the other one, and the one that played like heavy metal and this like really intense music didn't grow as well as the one that had the really nice like soft music, and it was like all in the vibrations that are put out and the intention, I guess. What I mean? It's all the energy that it's grown with.
Yeah.
So mushrooms are the same thing.
Yeah, it totally is. And I often think about, like I've heard of these, this method of growing weed where you, I forgot what it's called, but you electrify the soil. And I think it's called like Teslaponics. I think that's what it's called.
Okay.
but And what it is that the idea that like outdoor weed that's grown in the ground is better, and some people think it's because the earth has a charge to it, and that when you are growing weed in a pot or especially in like hydroponic stuff, whatever, it either doesn't have a charge or it has a different charge. So in Teslaponics, you put some sort of it's still hydroponic, but you put some sort of electrode into the medium, and you set it to the charge that and the current that is naturally in the ground. And that's one thing that I have been lucky enough to find wild psilocybin mushrooms, psilocybin ovoid cystiata, and granted, it's a different species, but it has a very different vibe to it as well. And I'm wondering how much of that is because it's growing from like its natural habitat and its natural food, its natural current, and stuff like that. And so, like, I just think that's pretty interesting too. That like in all these growing techniques with cannabis and mushrooms and everything like that, we're actually not doing it as naturally as it might be intended to form. You know,
Naturally, you would get some cow shit and grow it on some cow shit.
wow, yeah, exactly, yeah.
I think that is actually such a crazy idea that everything has to be so sterile at home, but it grows on literal cow piles of feces.
Well,
It's crazy.
you know, I think with that is it's just a numbers game.
Yes, because there's so many spores. There's millions upon millions, and just all it takes is one of them,
right,
or two of them.
Yeah. So, you know, I think you could not make it as sterile as you want to, but make 100 jars.
Yeah, one of them's going to work.
One of them's going to work, and it's going to beat out the other stuff in it.
Yeah.
Just like in a cow field, not every cow pie has shit, or not every pile of shit has mushrooms in it, but one will. You know, like I think that's the idea there. But I mean, I do know. I've never gotten it because I didn't want to deal with it, but I do know people that have grown, you know, in their house using horse poop and have said there's a definite increase in potency and experience and stuff like that.
That's interesting.
Yeah. No, I haven't tried them, but there's several people that have said like, holy shit, yeah, this batch is out of this world, and it's probably because they added the poop in, you know.
I tried using worm castings and it got contaminated, so I haven't used it since. I just think I didn't. Okay, yeah. I don't think I sterilized it enough.
Yeah, I've heard of that. I haven't done that. But yeah, I mean, I like, you know, the first bunch of times I did it, I did with just the brown rice flour and vermiculite and just in the cakes and just fruited out of those.
Yeah, the PF Tech.
Yeah, the PF Tech and Dunkin' Roll or whatever. And I just got so little out of it and whatever that I was like, I'm going to start trying other things. And once you add that other step of breaking it up and like letting the organism get bigger, you just get more fruit. And so, you know, I definitely would recommend for anyone looking into growing to look up like monotub, or the other term is bulk to substrate or what's it called? Yeah. Is that, I don't know.
The shotgun fruiting chamber. Is that what you're talking about?
Well, no, it's where you take cocoa coir and you like get it. You get the jars to grow more and start eating this cocoa coir stuff, and you get a substrate going, and then you case that with stuff. I don't know. There's all this terminology that you really have to like look up a recipe, you know, basically, and just follow the recipe. And it's like I've said before, it's no harder than baking a cake. It's just you're baking a sterile cake.
Yes, everything has to be clean.
Yeah, but no, the shotgun fruiting chamber, that is well, basically, you're going to fruit something in it. Like you can put cakes in there, you can put casings, you can put pans, you can put all these different, you know, methods of growing mushrooms. But the chamber, what that does is add fresh air exchange and humidity, and it stimulates the
natural growth of the fruiting. Right.
Yeah. And so basically the two chambers you can create are the shotgun one, which has holes all over it and perlite, wet perlite in it. And the air moves through the holes. The monotub is like there's just two holes in it. And then you put polyfill in there. And I haven't done that well. So like, I don't really know why that's different, but I know it has to do with the perlite in the shotgun fruiting chamber. You get that wet, and that creates the humid environment in there. And it's a little more like work because you have to fan it out and all this stuff. I think the monotubs are kind of set it and forget it. So, you know, I think that's why a lot of people do the monotubs.
I'd have to look into that. I've only used the shotgun fruiting chamber and the perlite. Yeah.
And I mean, it works good. It's just, I think it's like a couple more steps that people usually don't want to do, but I think you know, set it and forget it is cool, but I also want to be checking on it. You know, I think like if you were going to get contaminated, like, you want to know as soon as possible, because it doesn't always, you know, I see on Reddit like people posting pictures, is this contaminated, is this not contaminated, and like a lot of times you can nip stuff in the bud, you know, not when it's in the jar. If a jar gets contaminated, you're screwed. But when you're in the fruiting stage, like you can cut contaminants out, or I think I've seen people say to put hydrogen peroxide on it and stuff like that. So I know you can do stuff like that, but you know, everyone's going to get contaminations at some point. Like you're creating an environment that a lot of things that are all around us want to live in, and you know.
Yeah, it's just part of the process. It's trial and error.
Yeah, I feel like there's something, I've never grown, but I feel like there's something that would be special about being there from, you know, the beginning to the end and then eating it. And I feel like there's something that is even more, maybe adds a little more magic to the magical experience, you know?
Yeah. Well, I mean, in my experience, and it's just like weed, right? Like if you go over to a buddy's house that grows his own weed, that's going to be the best weed you've ever smoked, you know? And like, if you go back to like the 90s, like weed was fucking terrible because it was mass produced and, you know, vacuum packed and all this crap. Right. Well, I mean, I run into so many people that send me emails through this, or just, you know, people that I've Skyped with and stuff like that, that are like, oh, I got a bad batch, you know, I'm going to try again next week or whatever. And like all this stuff. And like, they don't, you know, they're getting their mushrooms from someone that doesn't normally deal with mushrooms, but it's like, oh, I think I can get some or whatever. And I've kind of been around mushroom growers for so long that, you know, I don't know. I guess I've been spoiled, and I've never gotten that bad batch scenario, you know, that everything's always been grown with love and relatively fresh to the source. But there's a lot of people that are getting their mushrooms from, you know, wherever these mass producing, you know, profit based mushroom growers are selling their stuff, and they're probably mashing the fuck out of them and like adding other shit to it or whatever. To where, you know, maybe that's where we get these people that are like, I got to take 10 grams and, if, you know, that's the only way it's worth it or whatever. It's like, well, maybe you got way shittier mushrooms.
Yeah.
Got, you know?
Yeah, exactly. They weren't grown with love.
Right. Yeah. Or it could just be, you know, it could even be the result or not the result, but the reason for a bad trip, you know, like there's so much that we have yet to understand about these things that it'll be awesome to see if it becomes legal and regulated. It'll be so cool to see the understanding of it evolve.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it will, you know, like I think, unfortunately it comes back to what we were talking about with cannabis a couple podcasts ago, that it's like, once it's profitable to, you know, to grow mushrooms and sell them, or to sell the stuff to grow mushrooms, like that, then that industry will build up around it, and it'll become more likely to become legal because of the profitability.
And yeah, that was the subject of one of the articles that came out this week about you know, magic mushrooms going forward. And I'm trying to paraphrase everything, but it's basically the story of this couple that started a non-for-profit with the goal of, you know, helping getting these drugs to trials and getting them, you know, having meetings with the FDA and higher ups and getting it legal for trial use. And then eventually they switched to a for-profit company, and now they're trying to patent one of the only companies that can produce, or I guess they're patenting the methodology behind producing a trial ready form of psilocybin. And nobody else has been able to create a pure enough sample for trials, but they're trying to, I guess, just profit as much as they can before it starts booming, across the nation.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, and that's what sucks, because I really do think that mushrooms are a very noble, sacred thing. And I hate seeing them go the way of, marijuana and tobacco and all these things that are just going to become profit centers. But
well, I mean, cannabis is sacred too.
Oh, no, it is, but it's becoming, commercial, and like, I wanted legality. I didn't want commercialism. And it seems like you can't have, that you have to have both.
Yeah,
you
right.
can't have one or the other.
Unfortunately.
And it shows with fucking. I don't know if you guys listen to like AM radio or anything, but there's this commercial that goes around on AM radio, and it's for John Boehner, who is the Speaker of the House that left a couple years ago, and he I don't know if I talked about this in the other podcast, but he has this fucking commercial for some online cannabis investing course that he's doing. And it's like, oh, the green rush is here. And John Boehner, former Speaker of the House, is going to tell you what stocks to get invested in. And like, that's what he's fucking doing now.
Wow, that's insane.
And I mean, this guy, how many goddamn fucking prohibitionist bills did this guy vote for? And how many like freedom fucking, bills that could have granted freedom to cannabis users did he vote against and vote down, or not bring to a vote in the House or whatever? And now this motherfucker's on the radio trying to get, $99.99 from people to fucking get his stock picks. Like, come on, man.
That's insane.
And I guarantee too, I mean, I follow politics, but I'm pretty apolitical. I don't like either side. So, I don't want anyone to, that does care about politics to hear this and be like, oh, he's a liberal or he's a conservative. I'm neither. I don't give a shit. But I did not like Jeff Sessions, who was the
Attorney General.
Attorney General. I did not like, as soon as I heard, that he said good people don't smoke cannabis, and the KKK thing he said about pot users and whatever, like all that shit. I'm like, fuck that dude. That guy should not be the top cop in this country. That is not going to be good for cannabis.
Right.
And he, now that he's out and he can't be a senator again, or he's not going to be a senator, I guarantee that dude fucking joins forces with John Boehner. And it's like,
can you imagine? Oh my God.
It wouldn't surprise me. I mean, that's how these sons of bitches fucking work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, that's the thing, is I feel like a lot of states don't realize how much money they can also make off of cannabis and legalizing it.
Yeah. Well, and they do realize that, and that's why it's about to be legal, honestly.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, has there ever been a state that's voted no to recreational?
Yeah, my state, Ohio.
Oh, for real? Oh, yeah. That's unfortunate, man.
Well, I don't know. Yeah, so if you didn't follow it, what happened was there is this huge signature drive to get enough signatures to put it on the ballot. Mm-hmm. And so what and I was like, fuck yeah, I'll sign that, and everyone signed it, and everyone was like, this is great. I'm going to open up a grow warehouse and be a marijuana farmer. Except once they wrote the bill, or the issue that was going to be put on the ballot, it was written so that the 10 like LLCs that came up with all the money to fund the signature drive, they were the ones that got issued the commercial grow licenses first.
Oh.
And that they would see what was needed more before they added any other licenses. So the prohibitionists and the people against it were obviously like, they were not going to vote for it anyway. But what happened was they started throwing around the term monopoly. And half of the people who supported recreational cannabis decided not to support the bill. And so it didn't pass. But here's my problem with it. One is that in the bill, you were allowed to grow in your house 10 plants. what the fuck kind of monopoly does anyone have if you can make it yourself, right? Like there's not a monopoly on it. But everyone was like, well, but I want to be a marijuana farmer. That's what I want to do, right? Well, most of the people that I know don't have the fucking capital that you need to start a goddamn commercial grow on. Yeah. I mean, you're talking millions of dollars.
It takes a lot of money
in liquid capital. They finally started a medical program in Ohio, but it's all fucked up, and it was supposed to start in November, and they haven't even broke ground on any facilities. But to get the license to have a retail establishment is $100,000 a year, and you have to pay the first 2 years up front.
Wow. So it's actually like $200,000.
Just for the license. And that's for a retail shop. Can you imagine what the commercial grow license is? It's got to be insane. Nobody has that kind of money.
Yeah.
Except the 10 people, the 10 LLCs that formed to get this thing. So it was always going to be a monopoly. It might not be in the books in Colorado as a monopoly, but I guarantee you it's a fucking monopoly. And then now what you're seeing in Ohio with the companies that are coming in and hiring and stuff like that, they aren't startup companies. They're all the companies that are established in Oregon and Colorado and Washington and stuff like that. They're all just coming into Ohio, and they're going to come into every state. So it's even a bigger monopoly nationally now, except for states that you can grow in your house. And that's I don't want to use that term recreational for cannabis. I just make it not illegal. It shouldn't be anything. It should fall under the same restrictions as tomato.
Yeah.
Exactly. Recreational tomatoes.
Yeah. And if people want to make great products out of it and oils and edibles and really, really terrific, like top shelf type of bud and sell that at these stores and stuff like that, that's great. But I think the most important part is to just make it, it's just, you can have it and use it. It's a goddamn plant. And that's what I hope mushrooms can maintain.
Mm-hmm. It should be.
I hope that possibly the people fighting for policy change understand the commercialism that's fallen upon cannabis as a plant and don't want that to happen to mushrooms, and they keep it a sacred therapeutic thing.
Yeah. And I mean, the first thing I said back to you when you linked me that article was just good luck, because if you can grow it, who's going to stop you,
Yeah. I mean, like the ovoids, it took me a while to find them.
Yeah.
And then now I just, as long as it's a good year for them, like I can always have them, like, and they're just in the woods. How do you make that illegal to eat something you found in the woods? Because there's a lot of stuff that you can find in the woods that'll kill you dead, and they don't give a shit about that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I wish I had the knowledge on how to go hunting, for them. But that's the biggest thing that scares me is if you don't have the knowledge there, it's just like you're kind of flirting with death at times.
Mm-hmm, taking a chance.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, when we have I want to have my friend on the podcast and we'll talk about mushroom hunting, because it's the kind of thing, it's just like any kind of skill, man. It's something you got to just learn like it's a class almost.
No, definitely.
And the first one I ate, I was definitely kind of scared, like I hope we're right. Yeah, no, I think going forward though with mushrooms, that like you said, good luck.
Mm-hmm.
Like that article scared me, but I also think it's a completely different culture, and there was much more of a negative stigma on marijuana once it started becoming legal, that it was already well known. I think mushrooms are so much of an unknown to people that don't like drugs even,
Mm-hmm.
Like they know LSD, they're scared of LSD. They know ecstasy, they're scared of ecstasy. They know heroin, obviously. They know weed. They don't know mushrooms.
No, people don't know anything about mushrooms.
They don't like it, but they don't know it. They don't even know what it is, but they wouldn't like it, I guess. But yeah, like it's I think it's one reason the spores are legal. It's one reason, that they sell everything to grow it on, Amazon and wherever, like eBay and stuff. Like you can get all this stuff, and it's
so low key. Like nobody knows really anything about it.
Yeah, and I do think though that the knowledgeable public that has an opinion about it is overwhelmingly positive. It's not, there's no fear attached to it like there is for, or like there was for weed and acid, which is awesome.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, it's weird. And I'm sure we're jinxing it talking about this, and there's going to be some fucking, horror story of, did you see the new fucking story everyone's running with about kratom is that some pregnant lady took it and her kid had withdrawals. Yeah. And it's like, okay, so if a woman now drinks herself fucking silly her entire pregnancy, and that was a news story, they would blame the mother. That they would say, "How dare you? How dare you do that to your baby?" But they wouldn't blame the substance.
Oh, they're blaming kratom.
Yeah, and then in this instance, it's like, wait a fucking minute. Like this lady was taking drugs while she's pregnant. Like what? Why are we demonizing the drug?
Mm-hmm.
It's
propaganda, probably.
Well, and it's cutting into those opioid profits, so that's the real reason,
right? And they're looking for every story they can, and they found some stupid, irresponsible kratom user, and so unfortunately with mushrooms, they, that something like that could happen, that someone will, do something stupid, drive a car or whatever. I don't know, and
Bill Hicks has a bit about that.
Right.
He's like, oh, you're ruining it for the rest of us or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And it's like, they'll blame the substance and not the person. And that's unfortunate.
Yeah. I mean, it's not like if somebody's, drinking coffee and gets in a horrible car crash, it's not the coffee's fault, but I mean, they're going on to the kratom thing. It's entering a weird space where the amount of news about it has definitely slowed down. It was a strange period when we had that first episode, where there was like publications coming out very, very frequently and very consistently. But most recently, they've started seizing packages coming into the U.S.
I did.
That have been, from Indonesia, or from areas that are sourcing these things or sourcing these plants, and they started seizing them to the point where providers, have been cutting back heavily what they can sell and the quantities. And I don't know if this is the government's way of putting an end to it, but I don't know. For somebody that loves it, myself, it's kind of scary.
Yeah.
Stock up on it.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to do, man.
Can you grow it? Do you guys know anything about growing kratom or kratom?
Yeah, you can, but I think the climate is key.
Yeah, you got to live like in the South. Like I think if you lived in Florida, you could grow it real easy, but I don't think it can survive a winter.
Mm-hmm. It has to be like very humid.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. So I thought about that because it looks like a cool tree too.
Mm-hmm.
But I want to grow that. I want to grow salvia too. I was thinking about that. I was looking at growing some salvia houseplants or something.
Definitely.
I've only seen. Have you guys? What's your guys' experience with salvia?
I smoked it a while, like back in college, and it didn't really do much. It was just kind of like it was like a freeze frame of time and space, but nothing else happened. But I don't know if you listen to our last podcast, we had a dude on Kenny tonight that he chews it, and that is the traditional way to use it, and definitely seems like a much different experience. It's something that I want to rediscover and with chewing, because he just has some amazing stuff to say about it, and really opened my eyes to to its potential and stuff like that.
The usual way to do it is smoke it out of a pipe, right?
Well, that's the way that Americans grabbed onto it.
Oh, I see.
But its traditional shamanic usage is chewing the leaves.
That's interesting.
And they always said that if you smoke it, you burn the demons or something like that. I can't remember what they're saying is, but yeah, no, it's traditionally in its native range and usage, it was just chewed.
It must make it a totally different experience.
Well, yeah, and have you watched Hamilton Morris's Pharmacopoeia on Vice?
Yeah, just not on salvia though.
Oh, okay. Well, he has a salvia episode. You should check it out. But he talks about the chemistry of it, that it needs to be absorbed through mucous membranes, and even drinking it as a tea doesn't really do much. But that smoking it burns off most of the compounds.
Mm-hmm. That's interesting.
Yeah, and that it's just not the efficient way to get the salvinorin A or whatever into your body. So yeah, I definitely want to check that out. I had another thing I want to ask you to go back to mushrooms for. We got a couple more minutes here, and then I got to get off. But have you tried? I've been trying to tell as many people as I can about this, but have you tried Syrian rue when you take mushrooms?
I have not. No.
Okay, so that it's a MAO inhibitor that basically, well, if you look up Silowaska, is something that people are calling it now, and so it's the idea. Like, do you know like the why ayahuasca works to be able to orally ingest DMT?
Yeah, because you need the what's the other plant called?
The Bonasterius copy vine.
Yes, yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So so that has a substance in it called harmine or harmaline.
Yep.
And that's in Syrian rue, and actually I think from what I've seen that it's actually the highest percentage by weight of harmine that you can get.
Mm-hmm.
And so it stops your body from, much like with DMT, your body breaks it down immediately with your MAO enzymes. And so harmine blocks those enzymes a little bit. And psilocybin breaks down the same way because it's, pretty much similar to DMT chemically. And so if you take the Syrian rue, it can last for about 12 hours, your trip. And also you don't have to take as much. It's I wouldn't say it doubles the potency, but it's at least a third. Like if you took a gram of mushrooms, it would be like taking a gram and a half or something like that. Or whatever. And it just depends. Like it depends on how much Syrian rue you take. I take 3 grams, and I take it maybe 4 or 5 hours before. I don't want to lengthen the trip. I just want to add a different plant synergy to it, and also not have to take as much mushrooms.
Mm-hmm.
What's the difference in experience? Just the potency, or what was noticeable?
Well, so there's 2 things. One is that Syrian rue has an effect, like it kind of feels like the like end of a trip before you go to sleep.
Like calming.
Yeah, it's very calming. It puts you in a cool mood. Like you're just kind of like, all right, or whatever. Much like I've taken Phenibut for the same reason before a trip. But Syrian rue kind of feels the same way. And the other thing is it does add a more a more living element to the visual nature of it. There's more open eye visuals, I guess is what I would say, compared to closed eye visuals. And what's interesting, if you've ever read Terrence's book, True Hallucinations, have you ever read that book?
Yeah. I have.
So they talk in there, well, and in Brotherhood of the Screaming Abyss, Dennis's book, he talks about it in there as well. When they went to find ayahuasca and they discovered mushrooms and they just started eating them. And this basically started the American interest in mushrooms, in the counterculture. And their trip just became about mushrooms. Well, they were just eating them. Like that was all they were eating for a week or 2 weeks, however long they were there. they had found the vine to make ayahuasca, but not the plant that had the DMT in it. So they were smoking the cappy vine, and which works. You can smoke harmine, which on eBay you can even buy like crystal freebase harmaline to smoke it. And they were smoking that and eating the mushrooms. And Terrence and Dennis called that vegetable television.
Wow.
And they said that's when their most visionary and visual experiences with mushrooms came from, is when they were taking the cappy vine and getting the MAO eye effect from it.
That's interesting. I'd have to try that.
Yeah.
Is it like calmer, or what do you think are the positive effects?
Yeah, definitely calmer, but much less. I don't want to walk around at all when I've done it. It's more like sit back and.
But maybe you're not fighting the trip or anything. It helps ease into it.
No, yeah, it helps ease into it, and I've definitely, again, the scientist in me wants to believe, well, it was this that was activating this receptor, whatever. But the head in me like wants to be like, there's a spirit in the fungus, but there's also a spirit in these seeds, and that I kind of felt like the spirit in the Syrian rube was like keeping the bad spirits away of the fungus, if that makes sense. That, I just kind of felt that, like, every time I would get a little uneasy, it would just melt away.
That's awesome.
So it was a lot better experience.
Yeah.
Have you tried CBD with a trip?
Oh, I have.
No, I haven't.
Oh, so I did that one time, and it was like when I did it under my tongue, so I put like the little tincture under my tongue, and right when I did it, it almost like enhanced the trip. But it was like, that's when it started. Like I just felt it all of a sudden just come on all of a sudden.
Wow,
interesting.
But it was such a very subtle effect because it's CBD.
Yeah.
But I felt it like right when I did it. Like it was almost like I could feel the CBD more. I was like, whoa, this is it was crazy.
Well, I mean, it makes sense. I think when you're on mushrooms or anything like that, like your mind's more open to like what's going on in your body, and that would make sense because I mean CBD obviously does a lot of stuff in your body. It's just not as intense of a cerebral effect as smoking weed is, or THC is.
Yeah.
But it obviously is doing a lot in your body. It
helped with the nausea.
Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah, and for me at least, I've always noticed like, well, I guess it's pretty common across the board with psychedelics, but whenever you ingest or smoke weed on a trip, it evolves and it turns into just a brand new thing. But for me, even more specifically, it turns me inward, I guess is the best way to put it. It turns me inward more than I would be if I didn't have any of that in my system and just the psychedelic. And I think that's really where I've definitely had difficulties there, but I've also gotten the most out of trips mixing the two,
100%. 100%.
Yeah.
I use it for whenever I get into like a headspace I don't want to get into, and you can just switch up so quickly. You just take one. All it takes is one or two puffs, and you can completely get into a different realm of your mind. It's crazy.
Yeah. Well, and Terrence talks about that too, but I've always found that like I'll be like just kind of grooving, then I'll be like, I'll hit a bowl, and then I'll take 2 hits, and I'll be like, I shouldn't have done that. So it could also put you into the bad headspace.
Exactly.
That's true.
Yeah,
that's true.
I find that if, or at least if I fantasize this, I feel like this is what the case is. I've never tripped alone, but I feel like if you were to trip alone and you took the psychedelic, I feel like no amount of weed would really put you in a bad space, really, because you could just lay down and be by yourself at the end of the day.
Sometimes being by yourself is scary.
I guess that's true. Yeah, I guess I don't mind it. So that's a little bit different.
The tripping by yourself compared to with other people, it's a totally different experience.
Yeah. That's next on my checklist.
No, I mean that's most of my experience. Yeah, that's most of my experience actually. I mean, I definitely like Um, all of my like higher dose acid experiences were all when I was a teenager, so those were with people. But most of my mushroom experiences in my adult life have been by myself.
Mm-hmm.
I've had a couple here and there with other people, but it's I don't know. It's that's part of the like adult responsible usage for me is trying to be in silent darkness, like
Yeah.
I don't want to be a total McKenna-ite or whatever, but like there's a reason that him and his brother and other people say like that's the way to do it, and there's a reason that the trials going on right now mimic that, except they do add music and there are two people there.
Mm-hmm.
But they don't talk to you, like they just kind of ask you how you're doing every now and then, but it's lying down under a blanket with eye shades on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the only thing that's different is the music, but the music is, you can actually get the playlist. They've published the playlist that they play. It's like a 7 or 8 hour playlist, and the majority of it until probably near the end is just all instrumental. So it's not, anything that you can identify with, or it's more of a soundtrack to what you're going through than anything,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I definitely recommend anyone trying, to do silent darkness for the first time to try instrumental music, like that. They do like classical music. I think that I've done, Brian Eno. It does instrumental stuff on Spotify. That's kind of just, kind of like spa music. I think it's the same kind of stuff they play in flotation tanks. But my problem with that is it still kind of directs your trip. There's nothing bad about it. You're still going to get a good, meaningful experience, but there's something about your brain having to like go through this chaotic period of like, what am I going to focus on? Oh, what's this? Oh, hey, you hear that heartbeat? Hey, listen to that fan, and then like, once your brain stops like trying to like look for all that, and then it's like, okay, I'm going in, to find something to focus on. That's where like you have the crazy fucking like, living 1,000 lifetimes. I think you said earlier. Like that's where you have that. That's where you have all these like dream scenarios, and you're like peeking in on little like vignettes of people's life, and it's all a dream in your head.
Yeah.
And that's just using your own emotions and everything like that. And even instrumental music contains emotion. And so when you're listening to that, it's directing, you're going to go in your head, but your head's going to be seeking out the emotions that are being represented in that music. I think, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're saying. It sets the vibe almost.
Yeah, but I do feel, at least for me, if I'm, smoking or have an edible and I put on strictly instrumental music, it does help me remove myself from my physical barrier if I have my eyes closed. It helps me zone out almost. And it gets to the point where I can almost tune out the music,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So,
well, yeah, lyrics and stuff definitely make you focus on the music because you're listening to the language and envisioning what they're saying. For sure.
Yeah.
I'm not going to listen to Snoop Dogg on mushrooms.
No.
Yeah, not that I don't. I mean, I definitely listen to like.
Oh yeah, it'd probably be pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, well, I'm not just Snoop Dogg, but I mean, I listen to like the Grateful Dead a lot and Pink Floyd and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
But not if I'm trying to like work something out, just to, like, I don't know.
No,
just if
definitely.
I want to have like a real music appreciation trip and stuff like that, or
Well, and like whenever I first dabbled with psychedelics, I'm very big into hip hop as my main source of like, I guess even like inspirational music. If I want to get pumped up to do some work, I'll put something that pumps me up. But one thing I noticed, I went to go put on my favorite, genre, and all the tracks that were digitally made and not instrumentally created felt so just like nothing I wanted to hear. That was so different.
Well, I mean, I think, well, that's another thing. I think the psychedelic, or the modern hip hop culture is really embracing psychedelics right now. I mean, look at Chance the Rapper and Kid Cudi and
Travis Scott too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, you hear about that a lot. Like,
yeah, and you get a lot of, instrument to instrument created production compared to just somebody with a drum pad and a keyboard. You know,
Yeah.
it's more than just synthesized sound through a plugin on your audio workstation. You know, it's becoming, you're trying to learn every instrument so that you can have every instrument hand picked and hand played into your song, which then creates just such a more beautiful experience, you know?
Yeah, right.
And that's definitely evolving in the hip hop culture right now, which is great.
Modern day composers.
Yeah.
Do you guys meditate at all?
Yeah. Yeah. I do it in the flotation tanks, the isolation.
I love the tanks.
Yeah. Yeah. I can't really do it outside of that. Like I get too distracted. I'm not real good. I want to get into like yoga and stuff too.
Yoga's amazing.
Yeah. I think that's my next step to, you know, keep doing stuff that grounds myself, because I think that's a really important part of like any psychedelic experience, is that
yoga is a psychedelic experience.
Well, right. Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's people that totally have the exact same, you know, they describe almost DMT like experiences from doing hot yoga and Kundalini yoga. And, we've talked about that, all the non-drug paths to the psychedelic state. But just the healthiness of being more grounded in your life, I think helps you let go a lot easier, which is what a lot of trip anxiety is with mushrooms and anything, is not being able to let go. And I think being able to be disciplined enough to meditate and do yoga and stuff like that, I think can help you trip easier, you know?
You can almost direct it a little easier.
Right. Yeah.
In the pathways you want to go.
What about you, Gary? Are you like daily, or what type of practice do you do?
I practice yoga probably about every other day. Maybe I try to do it every day, but it's tough. But I meditate, like I do pranayama meditation every day, 2 to 3 times a day.
Is that deep breathing?
Awesome.
Or
yeah, it's just a simple, you breathe in, go like 1, 2 out, and you go up to 10, and you start over, and you follow your breath, and you get kind of just lost in your breath and the ebb and flow of things.
That's awesome.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that is very psychedelic.
Oh yeah. Well, you know, breath is such a big part of all of these things. And I did in the flotation tank, I did the Wim Hof breathing technique, which kind of sounds like that, but it's like it involves like breathing in, like you almost asphyxiate yourself, but you're trying to breathe in more than you're breathing out for a while.
Wasn't there the guy on Vice who like he dips himself into like freezing water?
Yep.
Yeah, the ice, they call him the Iceman.
Yeah.
But apparently he builds up all his endurance and everything from this breathing technique, and it involves like breathing like that for a while, and then I think you like count to like 30 breaths in, but you don't breathe out, you just let it go and then breathe in again. And then you hold your breath for as long as you can, and then breathe, or fuck, I can't remember now, but you there's a point where you breathe out all of your air and hold it for as long as you can, and then just start over as a cycle. And or I think you breathe out first, hold it as long as you can, then breathe in, hold it as long as you can, and then do the asphyxiation kind of breathing again. And you do that, and every time you do it, you try to hold it a little longer during the holding periods, and you get to a point doing that to where you just keep doing the cycle, but your brain just wanders off and you're not paying attention to it. And I mean, he says that it releases the DMT that's in our brains.
That's pretty intense.
And I mean, there's a lot of people, like videos on YouTube of people like going like, oh, I just tripped there, you know, like they're doing the breathing and then they like stop and they're like, I just had a trip. But I did that in the tank, and I never got to the point where I was breathing without thinking about it, but I got to this point where I was like, okay, I'm going to stop breathing like that and just breathe normal. And it completely cleared my mind and got me to the meditative state. You know, after you get the breathing out of the way, all the other stupid thoughts go away. And that's the stuff that distracts me when I try to meditate.
It's the thoughts.
It's just, you know, like, oh man, I gotta sign my kid up for that thing, or oh no, I got and you know, and then was like focusing on that breathing for like 5 or 10 minutes. That shit was gone. It didn't come back in, and I was able to just meditate the whole time in the tank.
Well,
and it was
that's what meditation is
right.
You get lost in the thoughts, but then you come back to the breath, and you always come back.
Yeah. And so, breathing is so important for that. And I mean, I felt like a million fucking bucks. I felt like I could breathe so much better after doing that. And I think I'm going to try. I haven't floated in like a month or so, but I think I'm going to try and incorporate that breathing technique, or maybe some other ones I'll try or whatever. But just getting a specific rhythmic breathing technique to do in there, just because I think that's so important for clearing your mind.
It is. And it's so simple.
And I've never tried it tripping, but I imagine that it would have a similar effect, you know?
Mm-hmm.
It's actually very difficult to meditate when you're on mushrooms or any psychedelic, because your mind's just moving just a million thoughts at a time. It's very hard to quiet down.
Yeah.
Except cannabis. Cannabis actually aids in meditation, like entirely. It is like a meditative tool. That's what it is, pretty much.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I believe it. Well, it's getting kind of late.
Yeah, we've been talking for a long time.
Yeah, man, it was a good talk. I think we stayed on track most of the time, but
I don't know. We talked about a lot.
Yeah. No, it was good, man, and definitely, you know, like I said, man, you were like one of the first ones to reach out to me, and I'm sorry it's gotten, you know, it's been this long till we talked, but
it's all good, man. I made it on.
Yeah, no, it's great, and it definitely shows like how much I appreciate everyone that's reached out to me, and all the people who have sent me emails and left comments and stuff like that. Like, keep doing it. And if you've been watching the shows and you're like, man, I like that podcast, I like the YouTube things, like, send us an email, man. Like, I want to get everyone on the podcast, like Gary here, you know, like, I mean, I'm not looking for someone that's got another YouTube channel and we're trying to build. I just want to talk to everyone. You know,
I appreciate you guys having me on. I have a YouTube channel of my own. It's, I used to make these like YouTube skits when I was in college, but I'm going to be making like psychedelic videos and doing kind of like meditation, teaching people how to meditate and stuff like that. So it's awesome. youtube.com/GaryTheGreat123. So if anyone wants to run over there and support the movement, you guys can head on over there. But I appreciate you guys having me on. Let me know whenever you guys want to do this again. I had a great time.
Yeah, hell yeah, man. And we'll link your channel when we post it and stuff. That'll be cool.
Sounds good. I think I've got about like 2,000 something subscribers, so I'm getting up there. So if you guys want to start the movement and join the I'll find the others, you know what I mean?
Yeah, awesome, man.
It's we're all fighting the good fight here, you know?
Yeah, for sure. All right, and so this has been the 4th episode, and we will be coming back at you as soon as we can. It's Help Find the Others podcast. Thank you.